So, do you ever have a panel or a quilt border and you're trying to get some blocks to go around it, but the measurements are goofy? You know, goofy's an official quilting term. I needed that. I printed this picture and I needed unique size blocks to go around it. And for this panel, I'm going to need the same. Scan and Cut to the rescue. It cuts perfectly sized blocks for whatever measurements we need. It's a lifesaver. I'm Cathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. Join me because I have some solutions for you. So we're going to do some precision border piecing with a Scan and Cut. But first, we kind of need a picture to put a border around, right? So I'm having so much fun with the Print Motive Fabric Printer. I've been printing family photos and a whole bunch of other stuff. So this is a picture that I did. This is one of the first ones I did. It's a picture I had, and it has some damage on it. You can see there's a little bit of damage right here by Grandma's face. So I had fun a long time ago actually, and I did a little pencil drawing, and it has a little like gold background. And so I took a picture of it. But how did I get the green? Came a little bit of green. Well, some of you can take a picture with a mobile device, and there's some controls that you have to do some colorization. There's even fancier programs out there if you want to go crazy. But what you can also do is when you're taking a picture, you can do what the photographers do and make yourself like a little filter. So I found some of this blue cellophane, and I actually put it in front of the light when I was taking the picture, and it kind of gave the yellow a green cast, which matches all my fabrics. And you could even make your own. I just took a Sharpie and kind of drew some like pinkish. This is the plastic that's on the back of the fabric after you print it. So there's all kinds of uses for it, I think. So you could do that. So I have other pictures, tons of them I'm going to do. This is this little boy grown up and this little girl, well, not quite so grown up, and they're on back of a car. It's probably a new car back in the day, and I wanted to do a picture of that because, like I said, I'm hooked. So I took a picture of my picture with my iPad, and on the Artspira app, what you do is that's how you print, is you bring that picture in. So what I did is I took the picture and I took it into my photo editing software in the iPad, which is real simple. You can crop it, you can recolorize it. So that's what I did, and I'm going to show you. I really like it. I think it has that cool like autumn feel to it. You can see it's different than the one that's there, kind of different tone to it, and I'm real excited about it. Now, I'm going to show you how I did it, but how I got it to where it was, but I like it, so I'm going to print it. So what you do is you save it first after you get everything the way you want it done, and let's call it Two Kids. Doesn't matter, it's your personal reference. 2 Kids, and I'm going to hit save. Now what's happening is the iPad is saving it to the Artspira server. So it's going up into the cloud, and then what the printer's going to do is the printer's going to pull that down from the cloud once I say good to go. So it's still saving. It takes it a little bit depending on the size of your picture. Now while I'm here, let me tell you that I printed this picture with I didn't know what I was going to do. So I made it just at whatever size I made it. And so I needed to put a border around it because that's what it needed. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about making a custom border. Now this picture, I could make it I knew what I was going to do. So I made it a size that I can fit certain blocks in. So if I made 5.5-inch blocks, it would fit into 2 blocks would fit on the 11-inch width, and 3 blocks would fit in the 16.5-inch height. So that's the exact size that I made the picture. Let's print it, and then I can show you. So I'm done. This is how easy it is. There it is. And what it's going to do is going to have me select the printer, and the printer is on. So I select it and tell it which one I want to go to. I only have one. And then I can change my print settings if I want to. I can go with Echo Mode or Fine. Actually, Echo Mode has been working great for me. It saves a little bit of ink, and it looks the same to me. And I can go borderless if I want to. Yeah, why not? What the heck? Oh no, I don't know if that's going to change my settings. So we'll just leave it that way. So we're going to go back, and now it's figuring everything out, and it's ready to print. So all I have to do is hit print, and it's going to remind me that I need 17 inches of fabric on my fabric roll, and I know I have that. I say okay, and it's going to do its thing. So let it do its thing. I'm going to put this down. We talk a little bit about what we're going to do with the border. Now, when you have like a picture you're going to put a border around, or a quilt block, or a center, or anything, what you need to do is figure out how big those blocks need to be. So in this example, I kind of fiddled around with it, and I figured that 5.5 inches is going to work great for a square block. But what if you have a panel that's a little bit different? So I'm going to put blocks around this panel, and there's no really good place that I can trim it down to a size that's going to work. So what I did is I measured, I fiddled around with it, and I came up with, I need the blocks going across the top. I can have 3 of them at 4 7/8 inches, and 5 of them at 4.5 inches, which is different, right? So we can do that in the scan and cut. We can totally pick a block and have it do the custom sizes for us and figure out and do all the fussy math and everything, which is pretty cool. Now, one trick I have, oh, by the way, the picture's done. Look how cool this is. Oh my goodness. Look how cool that is. Oh my gosh. This printer is awesome. Now I'm going to have to let it dry for a little bit, so I'm going to set it down here. You let it dry for about 10 or 15 minutes. So like I said, I was figuring out the size to go around here. What I do is I take a piece of paper or even a piece of stabilizer, and what I do is I kind of fold it and mess around with it so I can come up with the size that I need. This could even be a big, huge quilt. And if you can't cut the quilt down, or it's different goofy sizes, then you can make custom blocks to go around the outside edge of it, which is pretty neat. So we're going to go to the scan and cut, and I want to show you how I'm going to do the blocks for this. And if you wanted to do something even pretty smaller that's kind of unique, well, we can do that too at the scan and cut. It's really going to be helpful to precision cut our blocks so that it's going to fit and I don't have to trim it down. So I printed my picture, I've talked to you about it, I'll meet you over at the scan and cut. So it turned out so good, and I promise you I'd show you how I did it. So what it is I made it 11 by 16.5 inches. So I created in the Art Spira app, I went to the print design editor, and I brought up a sheet, a workspace as it will, that's going to print out, and it's 11.69 by 17, so I can fit my image in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit plus, and go to my camera roll, because the pictures are in my iPad. I'm going to pick this one up. There it is. Now it's going to come up kind of smallish. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in there so you can see it, hopefully. Pinch it and, whoops, you got to touch it first. Pinch it and make it bigger. And you can get it pretty darn close to the size. Once you get close, you can come down here and you can edit it, and you can go to size, and you would increase it up to the size that you need. And you can do it proportionally, or if you click off this little lock right here, you can make one side stretch and the other side shrink if you needed to. Remember, it's going to affect the proportions and the look of your picture, but you can get it the exact size that you want. So that's basically all there was. I brought the picture in, I decided how big I wanted to make it, I made it, and the printer printed it. And it's pretty cool, right? So that's basically how that worked. Now, let's talk about cutting out a perfectly pieced border using the scan and cut to fit. Now you may have some blocks out there that you have to do some special unique size. So I did. I had my little panel and I measured that out, and it's a unique size. But let's make the ones for this picture that I made, which are 5.5 inches square finished. So that means there's 6 inches unfinished because you add that 1/4 inch seam all the way around. So now on the Scan and Cut, they have a ton of built-in quilt block designs. And what's really neat about the ones that are built in is it's all automatic for you. You have all the pieces there, you can tell it what size you want it to be, and it's going to add that seam allowance and everything automatically. So let's pull one of those up. If you go to Pattern and you go down, this machine happens to have these type of different blocks. We'll pick a simple one. There's one right there. And there's the category. Let's see with this one. This one looks good. Now, oops. Let's set it to inches. So now it comes in at 9 inches. Remember, I want it to be finished at 5.5. So I'm going to reduce it down to 6 inches. But I want you to notice something. As I go down, it's measuring in the hundredths of an inch. So if this had to be finished that unique size, like 4 7/8 or something like that, I'd have to add that 1/2 inch to figure out what size it needs to be. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to come down, and what did I say? It needed to be 6 inches. Perfect. Now notice also that it makes this block perfectly symmetrical. And these blocks that are built in the machine, they are going to be perfectly symmetrical. Now I have a trick a little bit later on. If you want to make a block a unique size, you can totally do that too. But we're going to go in the back door a little bit. So now this is 6 inches by 6 inches. When I unfinished. When I hit OK, it's going to show me all the different parts and pieces for my block. So let's just pick the square. That's pretty easy. There it is. And when I say OK, it's going to bring my square up and tell me exactly the size that it needs to be. 2.5 inches times 3. When you take out those 1/4 inches, it's going to give me that 6-inch finished block. See, there's a lot of math to it, right? But the machine kind of takes care of it for you. So I'm going to hit set. And there are the 3 blocks that I need for my quilt, because it even multiplies it by the number of blocks that you need. I really only want to have just the one just to show you. So I'm going to pick one of them, and I'm going to bring it down. And let's pick this other one right here, and let's go to edit, and let's just delete that one. OK, and delete this one. OK too. So now I have a block that I can show you. And we're going to draw the seam allowance in too, because that's the beautiful thing about the ones that are built into the machine. It automatically draws the seam allowance, and everything's there. It's like a no-brainer. So I'm going to find out where my fabric is on my mat. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to hit this button, which is the scanner. The beautiful thing about Scan and Cut is it scans what's on your mat. Place your cutting file exactly on where you want it to be. If you wanted a fussy cut, you could do that too. So it's doing that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw our seam allowance. So this is a wash away pin, and it goes in the pin holder, and you just clank it on in, and you put it into the machine. Oops, put it into the machine and lock it down. Okay, so now I can see that my block is going to be fine where it is on the fabric. I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to tell it I'm going to draw that seam line first. So when I come in, I say please select, I say draw, and if you notice what it's done is it's picked out only that seam line, because the machine knows. All I have to do is hit start, and it's going to remind me my scanner level is down low because I scanned. I'm going to flip this lever on the side, and it knows to tell me, and so now I'm good to go. Don't you like the way it babysits you? So it's hard to make a mistake. Perfect. So I hope you can see there is my seam line. So if I need to test out my machine to do a perfect 1/4 inch seam, no problem. So I'm just going to go finish. Now I'm going to go please select, because the next part would have been the triangles and stuff on there. I'm going to pick the cut now to cut the outside edge. And I can test it, but I'm pretty good to go. And while it's cutting, oops, oh, see, it knows. It knows I have the pin in there, see? I'm going to put my rotary cutter in. I love the way it babysits me. So I'm going to put that in, lock it on down, OK. Now what I did is I put the rotary cutter in, and the rotary cutter is with some machines is an optional accessory. With a DX model you can use it. And what it is a mini rotary cutter. I have my fabric laid out on the fabric mat upside down because I drew my seam line. The fabric mat is super sticky, so you only want to put fabric on it. If I had this and I was cutting it for an applique, I would put it upside down and have to mirror my image because you only put fabric on the fabric mat. It's made for a single layer of fabric. The rotary cutter does great. Now here's a secret I'm going to tell on myself. When I first got the rotary cutter, I thought, how do I tell the machine, oh my gosh, how do I tell the machine that that's the cutter that I have in there? But as you can tell, it automatically knew. It knew I had the cutter in there and I didn't have to do anything but stick it in the little holder and the machine's good to go. Now, let's cut out our square. Now this is pretty simple. This square we're cutting out, as you could see, was the 2.5-inch square. It's testing the thickness of the mat. It's testing the thickness of the fabric, and now it's going to go to town. But if I'm going to do a different size, you can see that when I moved the different size of the block, I did it in hundredths of an inch. So say I had to do a 7/8, I'd have to look up the decimal. That's 0.875, so I would have had to be 5.875. And that's okay. It's just something that you can look up if you have to, but it's not going to work in fractions, which is kind of good in a way because it's easier for me to manipulate when it's not in fractions. Oh, let's see what it cut real fast. Oh my gosh, it's perfect. So there's my perfect little square to piece, and when I put the other parts and pieces together, it's going to go perfectly around my little guy. But now, let's talk about, and we're done. Finish. Okay, we're going to go back. Let's talk about if you have a square that's a little bit unique. Remember I measured my panel. Here's my panel. Here's my panel, and on one side I need 4.5-inch squares finished, and on the other side I needed 4 7/8-inch squares finished, right? In the corner it have to be 4.5 by 4 7/8, and this is getting to way too many fractions for me. I don't know about you. I've kind of lost interest. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to show you a trick that you can make your block. You can make it a different size if you need to, and the machine's going to cut it perfectly. So let's just work on those 4 7/8-inch blocks. Here's my trick. It does require a little bit of prep. What I did is I drew out my block on just a plain sheet of paper, and I drew it out 4 7/8 inches for the finished size. Now in this case, you're not doing the unfinished size, you're doing your block the exact finished size. So I took my ruler, I drew it out, and I drew out my block pattern. Now all these basic shapes, see the half square triangle and the square, they're all basically in my scan and cut. And I can tell them that I want a shape, a certain shape, a certain size, and I'm going to add that seam allowance to it. And it makes it pretty easy. So let's go back and let's do that. I'm going to go home. Yes, I don't need that anymore. I'm going to go to pattern. This time I'm going to go to my basic shapes. Now let's do that triangle. Here is my half square triangle, which looks just like my triangle there. There's all kinds of basic shapes in the machine, so you can find the one probably that's going to work for you. If not, there's a free computer app called Canvas Workspace, and you can even draw your own specific shape there and do some of the stuff I'm doing on the screen here. A little bit bigger, a little bit easier, use a mouse, so that can be done too. But I thought I'd show you how it was pretty easy on the screen of the machine. So let's pick that, and I drew out my pattern. I'm going to cut my triangle a certain size, but I'm going to show you a little trick, and this is my favorite little trick. When I'm measuring this in inches, fractions of inches, that's a little crazy. That's a little wacky. I can get into, God, I can get into 4 and 3/18. I don't know. I can get into something crazy. So I'm going to suggest, and don't be scared, I'm going to suggest that you flip your ruler over and measure this block using millimeters. Don't be scared. Don't leave. It's really, really simple. So let me show you how I did that. Now, I took my ruler, I flipped it over to the size that has the millimeters and centimeters. These big numbers are centimeters. These little numbers are millimeters. Do you see how many more I have to measure? And it's in a system where it goes up 10 at a time. It's something it's like money. It's basic, it's tens, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to put that into millimeters. Now when I come back, it's going to show me the size of that rectangle, the finished size, in millimeters. Now I'm going to measure my little block here, my little triangle, and it measures to be 62 millimeters. It's really easy. I go to the 60 and it's 2 more. No fractions, no crazy figuring stuff out in point whatever. It's easy. So let's go down to 62. I think you'll agree that's pretty easy. Now remember I said I might want to have this a little bit different. If I had drawn out my block so that it was a little wonky, one side was a little bit longer than the other, I can totally change this and not have to change it proportionally like I have to do with the other blocks. I can just click this here and I can change the one number to whatever it needs to be. Remember, I draw out my block ahead of time and just measure it. But let's go back to 62 because that's exactly what I want. Perfect. Set. Now, there's my square. You can't hardly see it. It's up here. Let me move it down here. There it is. Remember, that's the finished size, right? I want to add my seam allowance to it. And it's as simple as asking the machine to do it. I go Edit, Object Edit, and right up here, do you see the little dotted line and then the outside line? Just by touching that, it automatically gives me this suggestion and I can put in my 1/4 inch seam. Okay, done, just like that. And just like those other blocks, it knows one could be a drawn line and one's going to be a cut line, just like those other blocks. So when I say okay, I can come in. Now, we know what a drawn line looks like. Let's just cut it out. Because I can set up my machine, remember, to a perfect 1/4 inch, and I'm going to be good to go. I don't necessarily need that seam line. So I'm going to say okay, select. Let's just do the cut this time. And I know it's over here because I have a scan of my mat. I can test it if I want to, but let's just hit start. It's going to measure the thickness of the mat, measure the thickness of my fabric, and just cut it out like a little mini motory cutter. But it's perfect, the exact size that I need. 62 millimeters. See, that wasn't too scary at all. And before you can say, hey, I need something that size, it's done. And it's the exact size I need. The triangle is perfect. Now the square, I just do the same thing. And if I had a unique block, I just measure those different parts of it, put that measurement in the machine, and it's going to be perfect. Millimeters aren't scary. They're a little different, but you get perfectly precision border blocks from your scan and cut. And those projects that maybe you haven't finished because maybe they're a wonky size, well, I bet you can finish them now. You and the scan and cut could make that perfectly precision piece border any size that you want. So, print out your print fun stuff. Go ahead, put a border on it. They're like potato chips. I can't stop. I'm going to send it off to George. He's going to tell you a little bit about the two. And oh, by the way, I'm going to sew this together on the Stellaire, which is part of the trifecta of creativity. All three together. Oh, take it away, George.
Thanks, Cathy. That, as always, was a great presentation. And I want to talk about a couple of the items that you showed there. These are two facets of the trifecta of creativity. And if you have more information about that complete package, you can click on the link in the description. But first of all, let's talk about the Print Moda Studio. There's some amazing things that you can do with it by printing your own fabric, and you're going to see more videos to come. And this is a product that has been taking the industry, and we have this on sale right now. It has a regular retail value of $1,499.99, and it's on sale for $999.99. But wait, there's more. For a limited time, we're including a large roll, over 5.4 yards of fabric included free. This has a value over $100 and it's included free. We're including free shipping across the country as well as interest-free payments is available. So don't wait, that's for a limited time. Now the other item that was showed was the Scan and Cut, the model SDX 325. And that is an incredible product that I believe that every person that has an embroidery machine, that wants a quilt, wants to craft, they should have that product. And that has a regular retail value of $999.99. And right now for a limited time, it's for $749.99. And again, we have free shipping across the country as well as interest-free payments. So again, if you want to see a trifecta of creativity with the ultimate package that includes a Stellaire model and those two items, click on the link in the description for more information.